It's time for people to realize how one can have a fully working Linux distro. As more and more people try to daily drive Linux, and with the rise of the Steam tech, although there are still some speculation on it, Linux has got so easy to use. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can have a Linux distro working within minutes by using a virtual machine. Now, if you're new to Linux, then you're probably asking, what even is Linux? In simple terms, Linux is an operating system, just like Windows or Mac OS, but it's open source, meaning it's free and built by a global community. Instead of one company controlling it, developers from all over the world can contribute to making it better. Now, if you've ever looked up Linux, you might have been overwhelmed by something called distributions, or distros to be specific, especially if you're trying to install Linux. These are just different versions of Linux. Think of an ice cream. An ice cream has different flavors. Some like better than others. And these different versions of Linux are tailored to different needs. Now, we can obviously go to Wikipedia and take a look at the different versions of Linux out there. But that's pretty much the problem. Looking at this, you're probably asking, whoa, there are just so many different versions of Linux. Which one should I try? And we are barely scratching the surface. As you type the best Linux distro, you're going to be overwhelmed by different websites telling you which Linux distro you should use. So to summarize, it's easy to get lost when choosing a distro, but the truth is, you don't need to worry too much about it. For beginners who are trying out Linux, you only need to know these distributions, and those are Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Pop OS, Fedora, and Zorin OS. But in this demonstration, I'm going to show you how you can install your first Linux distribution, which will be Linux Mint, as Linux Mint is by far one of the easiest Linux distributions out there that you can install within minutes. So without wasting your time, let's get into the installation process. So in this section, I'm going to show you how you can install Linux Mint. I chose Linux Mint for this video because, well, one, it is very easy to install, and second, you are definitely going to have a good time when it comes to installing it, because one of the myths that people still believe up to this day is that, oh, Linux is hard to install, you can have a bad experience, no. And I would say, well, this depends on the distribution, because some distributions, yes, are harder to install than others, but Linux Mint, in my opinion, since it's very easy to use and it's geared towards beginners, you're gonna have a good time when it comes to installing Linux Mint. In fact, you realize it's going to take like a couple of minutes for you to have a full working Linux system. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. Before we begin the installation process, we are going to use a virtual machine. And the reason why we're using a virtual machine is one of the biggest mistakes that I think new beginners make is that when they install a Linux distribution, they run into weird issues, or let's say their Windows system messed their Linux distro partition, or they can't boot into Linux for some reason, and they regret doing that, and they say basically, oh, I'll never install, a Linux distribution. So it is because of this that we're going to play Linux Mint in a virtual machine so that you get comfortable using Linux Mint, and with enough time, if you want to, you can try out other distributions, so something like Ubuntu, Fedora, Endeavor OS, or even Arch if you want to, so that like you can basically find your own preferred distro. So the virtual machine that I chose is Virtualbox. I think Virtualbox is a good VM in my opinion. I have used this when I installed Arch. So this is the virtual machine we're going to use, and I'll also show you how you can set it up, of course. The next thing we are going to need, obviously, is the Linux Mint ISO. So let's type Linux Mint ISO. And as you can see, we are pretty much in the download section. So for this video, I am going to pretty much pick xfce edition. So now we have all of the things we need to start running Linux Mint. So the first thing we're going to do is to actually install Virtualbox on our Windows system. So let's pretty much install Virtualbox. So you want to click a bunch of next, of course, and then yes, you want to click next for the virtual network to work. So obviously want to click next. So as you can see, we have Virtualbox working. Now what we want to do is we want to choose basic mode. Since most of you are new to virtual machines, we're going to pick basic mode so that we have basic functionalities, or like basic options we can use. So let's click that. So now we want to do is we want to click new, and for the name we're basically going to type Linux Mint. Then for the folder, I'm just going to keep it default, but if you want to change the redirectory you can do that, but I'm going to keep it default. For the ISO image, I'm going to select the ISO image that we downloaded, and yeah, once everything works, you're good to go. Now you can click next. Another thing I forgot to mention, you want to click here where it says skip unattended installation. So this will allow us to install this manually. So yeah, you want to do that and you want to click next. So for the hardware, I am basically going to give this about 5 gigs of memory. Or here I would say maybe like 6 gigs, I think. Yeah, 6 gigs, just to have a little bit of stability. For the CPU, I would just give it about 3 cores, and then you want to click next. Now for the virtual hard disk, we are going to give it about 150 gigs of storage. So let me adjust this bar here. So yeah, then you want to click next, of course. And once you are done, then you just want to check if you did everything, like if you did everything correctly. You can go back and adjust the memory if you want to. You can adjust the processors. Yeah, so but for me I'm done, so I'm just gonna click finish. And as you can see, we have a fake virtual machine ready to be turned on. So before we even start turning on the fake virtual machine, we now go to settings. This is very important. You want to go to the display and you want to crank this video memory up to 128 megabytes. Otherwise you are potentially going to have crashes, but potential crashes because of low video memory. Yeah, and pretty much good to go. If you want to, you can add it. You can enable 3D acceleration, which is something that I'm gonna do. So this will allow you to crank this even more, so up to 256 if you want to. In fact, I'm just gonna leave it at 256. But once you do, you are pretty much good to go. You have everything set up and you're pretty much ready. Let's try to turn this virtual machine on. And as you can see, we have the installation working. So let me try my keyboard, and as you can see, it's working. So let's start installing Linux Mint. So as you can see, we have Linux Mint working. Now obviously this is not the actual Linux Mint. This is more like live environment. So if you want to make sure that your network adapter is working, or if you want to run some of these applications, and if everything works, then you are ready to install Linux Mint. So let's install Linux Mint. So for the language, we're going to pick English. For the keyboard layout, I'm going to pick a German keyboard layout. For the multimedia codecs, yes, this is very important so that you're able to play again video formats and stuff. So definitely install that. So now comes the installation type. So this says this computer currently has no detected operating systems. What would you like to do? Erase disk, install Linux Mint? Yes, that's what we want to do. Since we made our virtual hard disk, which has 149 gigs, that's the one we that's the one it's going to install Linux Mint on. So yeah, you want to click install now, and you want to click continue. For the time zone, I'm just going to leave it as is because that's my time zone. So you want to click continue. And for the name, I'm just going to type Mint. Then I'm going to select my password. And yeah, you're good to go. Now you want to click continue, and it should install Linux Mint. So as you can see, it's copying the files and it's installing everything it needs. So you want to grab a coffee or something to drink, and yeah, just sit down and wait for it to do its thing. Once it's done, you're going to see something like this. So it basically says installation is finished. You can continue testing Linux Mint now, but you restart the computer. Any changes you make or documents you save will not be preserved. So you want to restart this now because obviously I'm sure most of you have not made any documents or anything like that. So you're going to restart this virtual machine, and once you do, you have a full working Linux Mint system. So press enter. So you want to type your password. Once you do, congratulations. This took minutes to do, and as you can see, you have a full working Linux Mint system. So if you want to, you can follow this guide. Let's do that. So you want to click next. So these are the applications. Obviously, we'll focus mostly on the software manager, of course, and other stuff we'll focus on, but you want to click next. This is the documentation and other stuff. So you want to close this. Before we do anything, it's important that we update this Linux Mint system. This is very important, so that you have a stable Linux Mint, and so that you are pretty much up to date with the latest packages and whatnot. So that's what we're going to do. So you just want to click here, and I want to make this big, and of course you want to apply any available updates. So I'm going to apply this update. I'm going to type my password. Okay, so I'm having an issue where I cannot seem to install updates, so I'm going to select the fastest mirror because the mirror that the system chose seems to be not working. So I'm going to apply this one. In fact, we're going to make things a little bit easier, so I'm going to pick the fastest mirror, see if it works. Okay, so let's update this apt cache and see if it works. Then we should be able to update our system. Okay, with that being said, let's try again. So I'm going to update. Again, it's very important you update the system, because if you don't update, you're going to have issues, and we don't want to have issues, of course. So yeah, so as you can see, there are updates available, and we're going to update the system. So I'm going to pretty much click here where it says install updates, and yeah, the system is going to install these updates. And we might have to do a restart on this virtual machine, but that's completely fine. But again, for you, you might not have this issue. If you do, then you just want to select the fastest mirror depending on where you live. And once you do, you should be able to install these packages, and you are pretty much good to go. Once you rebooted your system, just double check if you have any other updates available. But once you have updated your system, you are good to go. Another thing I forgot to mention is if you have an AMD GPU, you are going to have a good experience when it comes to using Linux Mint or any other distribution. That's because AMD on Linux is overall much better when it comes to gaming and I would say basic everyday use. And from my experience that I've used Fedora for like 6 or 7 months, now I've had like a really fantastic experience when it comes to gaming on Linux using AMD. So if you have an AMD, there's no need for you to install additional drivers. That's because AMD drivers come with Linux out of the box. So like whenever you install, let's say Linux Mint, just like in this demonstration or any other distribution, it comes with it right out of the box. So there's no need for you to install any additional drivers. But if you have Nvidia, then you may want to install any additional drivers available. It's important you do this so that you can play whatever games you want to play on Linux Mint or like any other distro, of course. Nvidia has got better. I feel like it is slowly catching up, but I won't say it is as good as AMD. And from my experience, of course, I haven't like tested Nvidia on my Fedora Linux, which I will probably do in a future video, because I do have Nvidia GPU that is literally running on this Windows system. So yeah, that's just something I just wanted to add. In case you have AMD, you're good to go. If you have Nvidia, you may want to install additional drivers. So with that being said, now is the fun part, which is installing software. So you're probably asking, okay, how do I install something like Steam? How do I install OBS and all of these applications? So what you want to do is you want to go to the software manager. So this is where we're going to install available software applications, or like basically software that we use on a daily basis. So that's what we are going to use. Now bear in mind, we are not going to use the terminal. A lot of videos will start with the terminal, which there's no harm, but since you are new to Linux Mint and since you want to get comfortable using it, for now I recommend you use the software manager so that you can install whatever software you want to use. So as you can see, there is Audacity, there is OBS. So let's install OBS, which is relatively simple. You have two options. You can pick the Flatpak version, or you can pick the system package. This is really up to you. Like there's no, I wouldn't say the system package is better over the Flatpak. The only difference is that the Flatpak version of OBS is like a it's like a sandbox. So it you basically run software inside of a sandbox, which for security reasons it's a lot more safer. But if you want the system package, again, you can pick whatever you want. I'm just gonna pick the Flatpak version simply because I'm comfortable using it. So yeah, make sure you have enough space, of course, and we're going to install. And as you can see, it's installing. So I'm going to open OBS, and as you can see, it's working. I'm going to apply basic settings, but obviously I'm not going to record. But as you can see, it's pretty much working. The next application you're going to install, for example, is Steam, which I'm sure most of you want to install. You want to install this one, of course. It seems to be only the system package available, but again, we're going to install this one. And once you do, you're going to install all of your games, and you are pretty much good to go. So installing software on Linux is really not hard. It's like you're just one click away and you're pretty much good to go. Additional software we're going to install is called Lutris, which I'm pretty sure should be available, and it's pretty much available. So yeah, you want to install Lutris. If you have basically non-Steam games, or if you want to play like games outside of Lutris, well, not outside, but if you want to play games outside of Steam, so if you want to use GOG or EA or Ubisoft, then this is the perfect platform where you can install all of your games. Or if you don't like Lutris, another software you can use is Heroic Games Launcher, which is the one that I recommend. But again, I won't say Lutris is better than Heroic, but this is another software where you can install not only Epic games, but I believe you can install like games that are not from Epic Games Launcher. Yeah, so this is the one that I also recommend you install. And another one I recommend is called Portals. So let me check if it's available, but it should be available. And yeah, this is another one I recommend if you want to configure your games. It's slightly more advanced, but once you get the hang of it, then you can use this one as well. Again, installing software is really easy. Or if you want to install Spotify, which I believe should be available, you can do that. And yeah, so any software you're looking for, you can use this software manager and you can install
whatever software that's available.
Now, let's be real. Linux isn't perfect. You might run into a small or big issue like software compatibility, because not all software you use works on Linux, and I think Adobe or Microsoft 365 applications are the perfect example. Gaming on Linux has got better, but multiplayer games are still a problem due to kernel level anti-cheats. With that said, here's the thing though, making mistakes as you go through it is part of the journey. The more you use Linux, the better you'll get at it. I've been using Linux for almost 10 months now, and as many of you know, Linux has a very strong learning curve. My journey has definitely not been smooth sailing. I made a lot of mistakes, but I also watched a lot of tubers who make excellent Linux content. This helped me gain more and more knowledge, actually wanting to learn more when it comes to using Linux as a whole. We went from installing Linux Mint in the virtual machine within minutes to simply updating our system and installing necessary software for gaming. And we didn't even need to touch the terminal. So the beautiful truth is, Linux is not hard as many people still believe. It's no longer just for programmers, and it's definitely not difficult to install. And before you know it, you'll be navigating most Linux distros like a pro. So the question that now remains, who should try Linux? If you want a free, secure, and customizable OS, Linux is for you. If you're tired of Windows updates and Mac OS restrictions, Linux gives you control. If you love gaming, Linux now has better support than ever. Or if you just want to try something new, Linux is worth a shot. No matter who you are, Linux has something to offer. So let me know in the comments what's stopping you from trying Linux. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and enjoy the Linux ride.